Alright, in this tutorial we're going to go over some group policy management and just basics of applying group policies, linking them, creating them, checking them. So first thing, we're going to look at Active Directory users and computers and see who we're going to be dealing with here. We're going to be working with this test OU, and inside the test OU we have test 1 and test 2 user. We have a group called test, and down in this policy container we have our computer they're going to be working with. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to open up the group policy management console, and in the group policy management console you'll find domains, and we're going to look at our domain that we're using, and we'll see our OU structure. So I'm going to open up the test OU, and this is where I want to apply a policy, because I'm going to create a group policy to affect these users. First I want to explain a little bit how you link and create group policies. Group policies are, here are the group policy objects that we have already created. You create a group policy and then you link that group policy to whatever OUs you would like to link it to. So I could have one, say, staff group policy, and then I could have several staff OUs, and I would link that policy to those several staff OUs, and then I would only have to make changes at that one location for the one policy. So I can either go to the OU and right click and create and link, which would create the GPO and link it here, or I can link an existing. So if I just created a GPO and I created a new OU, I could just link the one that I had created before here. So I'm going to go ahead and just create one, and we're going to call it test. And now this is an existing GPO. So I'm going to go over to the test OU and do a link an existing. And here's all of my GPO objects, and there's the test. So now that would have been the same thing if I would have done a create and link. But like I said, you could link one group policy to multiple locations, which makes it easy to manage, because now I only need to change the one object to manage the settings that are linked to multiple OUs. So now that I have this linked here, whatever settings that I set in this GPO are going to apply to the users and computers underneath this test OU and inherit down as well, unless somebody were to go in and block inheritance on an OU. So what we're going to do is just set a few basic settings for this test 1 and test 2 user, just to show how this works. So we've created the GPO, we've linked it here. I'm going to right click and I'm going to go to edit, and now I'm in my group policy editor. So we can apply either computer configurations here or user configurations here. If I only apply computer configurations here, then these will only apply to computers. So it would be the settings on the computer, no matter which user logged on, it would be computer settings. If I only do user settings here, then this is going to apply to the users underneath these OUs, and those settings will follow those users on whatever machines they go to. So right now we're just going to deal with the user side of this, and we're going to set just a few basic settings. So we're going to go in and just lock down the control panel. I've got a machine running. I'm able to go in and open up, personalize, and whatnot. I'm able to go to control panel and change whatever settings. So we're just going to lock down a couple of items and just show how this works. So first thing, I'm going to go down to, on the user side, administrator templates, control panel, and like there's a bazillion settings in here to set. It'd be impossible to cover them all, but we're going to prohibit access to the control panel. and I'm going to go into personalization, and I'm going to force Windows Classic theme on this Windows 7, which if I just leave this blank, it will force Windows Classic. Applying some of the desktop wallpaper stuff and things like that seem to have an issue. If you're using Arrow as the theme, you have much more control if you're using Windows Classic. So we're going to go ahead and set that, and then we'll just do some other things. There's some new options now that came out with Windows Vista and above called Preferences. And you can do a lot more things now with group policies than what you were used to be able to do. So we have obviously all these settings. You know, you got network, control panel, desktop, personalization, system, folder redirect. I mean, these are all settings that you can control by this policy that we're linking. But now they've added new ones where we can actually map drives, we can change environment variables, we can copy folders. We can, like when a user logs on, copy these folders to a certain place. We can create folders, we can edit INI files, we can make registry changes. So just to demo, we're just going to do a shortcut. We're going to put a shortcut on the desktop for when the next time, for whatever machine this user logs on, because it's a user policy, the user will get this shortcut. So I'm going to change this to replace mode because I want this shortcut to apply, and then when it's not applied, I want it to go away. So I'm going to leave that in replace mode. I'm going to call this my shortcut. And this is going to be a file system object, and we're going to put this on the desktop. I could put a shortcut in any of these other spots, but I'm going to put this one on the desktop. My target path is going to be a share on the server. And my working directory, or the start in, is going to be that same thing. I'm going to hit apply on that. I lost my name, my shortcut. I hit apply on that. And then the next thing I'm going to do on this shortcut is check this box into the comment tab to say remove when it's no longer applied. If I don't do this, then later on, if I decide I don't want this shortcut and remove this policy, it's too late. The shortcut would be on the desktop and I'd have to remove it some other way. If I check this box and leave it in replace mode, then as soon as I don't want this shortcut anymore on the desktops, I could just remove this policy or disable it and they would disappear from the desktop. So I'd have more control to get rid of it. So that's going to put a shortcut on the desktop. We've hidden our control, the control panel, and we've forced classic view. So now let's go look and see what happens with that. So I'm going to go back over to the Windows 7 machine. And first I want to show you how we can tell what group policies are applying and show a little bit of troubleshooting. One of the commands is gpresult -r. And what this does is tell me the results of the group policies, so I can look to see which group policies are applying. And if I look on the user side, which is what we applied, all I see is the default domain policy. I don't see the test policy that we just made. That's because group policies refresh every 90 minutes by default on a 90-minute schedule, give or take 30 minutes for an offset. Or they also refresh at every reboot, or login. So that's controllable also by group policy. You could set the machines to refresh more often or not, but we're just leaving this at the default for the every 90-minute refresh. But what we're going to do for testing, there's a command that we can run called gpupdate, which will force an update. And that's what we're going to run right now, so we can process the group policy we just applied. So there, the policy, you can see that it already ran and it put my shortcut on the desktop, and it should be locking down the other settings. So it ran the user side and the computer side, and it says it's finished. So there's my shortcut that we did with the preferences. And then also, if you look under here, Start menu, our control panel is gone. Now if I were to even type control and search for it and click it, we're going to get it's been disabled. And since I can't do control panel from there, I obviously can't change the display or any other control panel items. So if you look now, since I did that force, if I rerun that GP result, we know it's applied because we saw that it's applied. And you can see right here under applied group policies, we see test. So this is a good troubleshooting tool to see if your policies are actually applied yet. So now I will go back and show you that if we disable the shortcut, since we did it in replace mode, we'll see what happens there. So I'm going to right click on this and all tasks disable. I'm going to go back to my machine and I'm going to run another GP update. And you can see my shortcut's gone. So that you can tell that that's very handy. It can give you very granular control of shortcuts. There's other items in group policy. You can manage the Internet Explorer favorites, all that stuff. So lots of granularity, lots of stuff you can do with the new preferences, internet settings, local users and groups. Ton of stuff in here. Power options. I mean, it's very granular what we can do. So now I want to show, that was just the default how we apply a group policy to an OU. I want to show a little bit how we filter a group policy. First I'm going to enable this back so we can see it. And our group policy is set up. And if you notice, I'm clicked on my group policy here, and we look at security filtering. By default, when we create a group policy, it's going to apply to all authenticated users. So that means I'm linking this at this OU. All authenticated users underneath this OU, this will apply for. Now, what if I wanted to have, say, 2 policies linked to the same OU, but only apply to certain people within that OU? That's when we would use group-based filtering. Now there's other types of filtering like WMI filtering, which we could filter by like Windows XP machine or OS type. Only apply this to servers, only apply this to wireless machines with wireless cards. I mean, you could get very granular with the filtering, especially with the WMI filtering for the machine type. But we're looking at the users, and we're just going to show how to do some group filtering here. So now I want this test policy to apply, but I only want it to apply to test user 2 and not test user 1. So what I'm going to do is, I got this group here called test. I'm going to take test user 1 out of there and put test user 2 in. So now test 2 is in that group test. Test 1 is not. We're going to apply a policy to that top level OU and filter it to that group. So our test 1 user should not have the policy, but our test 2 user should. So what we'll do is, on this policy under security filtering, we're going to remove authenticated users, and we're going to add that test group. So now that policy should only apply to members of that test group underneath that OU. So that gives us much more granular control of how we're going to apply these group policies. Now let's test that out. So I'm going to run a GP update force, and right now I'm logged on as test user 1. And then we're going to do a GP result, and let's look what we see here. We see that we've applied default domain. The following were filtered out, and it says test filtering not applied, unknown reason. Well, it's filtering because I'm not a member of the group. You can see down here it even shows me my group memberships that this user is a member of, and I'm not a member of test. So test is being filtered on me, so I am not getting that applied. That means I have control panel as test user 1. Let's log out and check test user 2. Okay, we're now logged on as test user 2, and look, there's my shortcut. Control panel's gone. And let's go ahead and just take a look, even though we know. You can see the test group policy is being applied for my test user 2. So that's group-based filtering on group policies. As you can see, we can easily create group policies, apply them. If you want in testing, you can right click on these and just disable the links. So say I wanted to figure out something that was causing a problem. I know this group policy is being applied here. I just right click on this and I can say uncheck the link enabled, and now that will no longer be applied there, so that I can easily test without deleting things. As you click a group policy, it's easy to see right here. It shows exactly where they're linked. Right now, this policy is only linked to this test OU. If I had to link this to multiple places, that would show up on this list. This also, right here is our security filtering, would show us what groups that we're filtering for. I've got a details tab. I've got a setting that kind of shows for any of the settings you set within the policy. This makes it a little bit easier to just kind of see what's being set. I see that administrative templates, control panel, we're prohibiting app access, and we're also doing Windows Classic style. And I can see on the preferences side, we are processing a shortcut. And this shows those settings. So this is kind of a quick dashboard of what the policy is doing. You can back up your GPOs if you want to make changes, or just keep them for safekeeping. You back them up to a location, and then you can restore those at any point in time. The other thing you can do is you can do group policy results and group policy modeling. I can do a new wizard and say I want to see with user John Doe on computer 13 what policies are effect on that scenario with that user who's in a certain OU that's on a certain machine. Show me the group policies that are effect on that user, and that's what this group policy wizard's results does. So that's it for a basic overview on group policies. I hope this is helpful.